Welcome back to Sharp Focus, guys. You know, I've been a whiskey drinker since I was pretty young. It was more of a Jack and Coke type of whiskey drinker, but I always enjoyed, a great whiskey or bourbon cocktail. And then I transitioned into Crown Apple. When Crown Apple first came out, I started mixing it with a Sprite or a ginger ale or something, whatever, the bar had or whatever I had at home. And I absolutely fell in love with that. That was all I drank for several years. I'm not sure that you can really call that too much of a whiskey. I ended up drinking Crown Apple just straight from the glass on ice quite a bit. But I think that was all part of the process. And when I say process, I'm talking about the appreciation you develop for a good whiskey or a good bourbon. Over the years, I've sculpted this palate for whiskey and bourbon. And, as I've become a little more financially stable, I can try higher end whiskeys and bourbons. And I was shocked when I started, really exploring the real world of whiskey and bourbon. So what I want to do today is I want to show you where my palate has evolved to. What are my top 5 whiskeys, my go-to whiskeys that if I could only pick 5 to stock on my bar, these are the 5 I'd select and why. I'm going to go in reverse order. So I'm going to start with my least favorite, but I like them all quite a bit. Factors I kept into consideration is availability. I chose whiskeys and bourbons that are widely available across the United States. If you go to your average store, although one of them's a little sketchy, at least in my area, the rest of them should be pretty available no matter where you live. Let me know if you have problems finding any of these down in the comments below. Coming in at number 5, Four Roses Single Barrel. This is one of my go-to whiskeys again and again. It's complex, it's full-bodied, but it's surprisingly smooth. You can drink it straight or you can put it on ice. I prefer most of the time to have my bourbon or whiskey on ice. It depends on which bourbon or whiskey it is, but when it comes to Four Roses, this is great straight, great on ice. You can even mix it with some other stuff, maybe make an old-fashioned out of it. Cheers. Smooth. I don't want to say it's thick, but I mean it's full-bodied, and if you've had enough whiskey and bourbon, you kind of know what I'm talking about there. $60 a bottle. It's not breaking the bank account, so I mean you can use it on mixed drinks. This is a beautiful starter bourbon or whiskey. If you haven't tried Four Roses Single Barrel, make sure you give it a shot. Now, heads up, single barrel. Okay, if you get the regular Four Roses, it's going to have a lot more of a bite to it. The single barrel has a lot more character. It's smoother, and it's absolutely delicious. Coming in at number 4 is the Old Forester 1910. It is the 4th whiskey in their series, I believe. And what's really cool about it is it's kind of like traveling through time with the company. They're a very old company, and they go back quite a ways, and they're putting out these stages of whiskey and bourbon that are absolutely phenomenal to taste the differences. If you can ever get somewhere where you taste them all, absolutely awesome thing to do is to go through the ages with Old Forester. In 1910, there was a fire on the bottling line that halted all of the production of Old Forester. Mature whiskey that was ready to be bottled was instead transferred and stored in a secondary barrel. This 1910 Old Fine whiskey presents at 93 proof. It mimics that historic bottling with a small batch of barrels that have undergone a second barreling, resulting in a smooth buttercream, sticky toffee, and evolving spice that leads to refined char oak finish. ABV of 43%. you're going back. You can, the first thing I want to say is there's more of a bite. And so if you're brand new into whiskey or bourbon, this is probably not the one you want to start with. It's not bad. It's not way strong, but it's definitely one that you're going to feel going down. The Old Forester takes us back a ways before everything was so smooth and perfect, and it kind of gives us a little more raw nature. You can taste the process that I described. And, again, I'm still new on the flavors, the tones, but definitely have some caramel aromas as well as you can taste it. Those of you who have graduated the whiskey kindergarten and you've moved on to elementary school, yeah, this is a good, it's a good way to develop some appreciation for the different flavors and aromas that can come from different whiskeys. Absolutely a wonderful spirit to have on your bench, and give it a shot. See what you think. Blantons, an absolutely famous whiskey. This is the one. This is coming in at number 3. This is the whiskey that can be very hard to find, at least around here. In case you don't know, there's websites like reservebar.com and some others that now deliver whiskey. So if you can't find it in your area, you can check some of these websites and they might be able to help you out. I had to order that one online because you can't find it in my area. I found one bottle in my area in the last, 4 years, and it was 3 times the price that you can find it at most other liquor stores when you get out of my area or even online. Blantons it's pretty iconic. Now Blantons starts to go up in price quite a bit. It's $170, and so that's pretty steep for most people. It used to be designated for ambassadors and dignitaries and all of Colonel Blanton's family and friends. A very high-end whiskey. It's got a sweetness to it, but it's got a punch. And there's some notes of citrus, but you can definitely taste the oak. And when we're talking about vanilla, you can't taste it, but you can smell it. They say that it's got a caramel and butterscotch undertone. I'm not sure that I can pull that out of it, but okay. And then they say like clove, nutmeg, and cinnamon can be tasted. Personally, I like Blantons on the rocks, but you can serve it however you'd like. But at $170 a bottle, it's not something you're putting in an old fashioned, unless you got a lot more money than I do. Cheers. Oh, that's a really good drink. It's got a little more of a bite, but it's got a little bit higher proof. It's 46.5. I definitely get some of those tones they're talking about. I definitely smell the vanilla. I mean, that's pretty clear to me. But I'm not really getting a whole lot of nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon. I can definitely draw a line to the cinnamon. Like I think as I progress with my palate, I'm starting to kind of understand those notes better. Let us know down in the comments below what you're paying for Blantons in your area. Regular Woodford is my go-to whiskey for anything. If I'm at a bar and they ask my preference on bourbon or whiskey, the first thing I say is Woodford, because it's probably the most popular of these 5. It's definitely the most available, and it's perfect in just about any drink that you want, and it's pretty good straight or on ice. The double oaked is a whole nother ball game, at least for me. I've never seen a bar that had the double oak version. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to find at the liquor store. There was actually a bit of a shortage of it going around not too long ago, a year or so. But this is my favorite whiskey for an old fashioned. Oh man. I think it's a hair smoother than Four Roses single barrel. Just a hair. And it's like an earthy tone to it. It's absolutely delicious. You got to try it in order to know what I'm saying. I'm not the best at describing these things, but I'm just trying to give you what comes to mind. Double Oak comes in at about $65 a bottle. It's a twice barreled bourbon. It's matured in separate charred oak barrels, which is what gives it that very unique flavor and why they call it double oaked. The second barrel they use is deeply toasted with light charring, which extracts additional soft and sweet tones, and they even go on to note hints of chocolate, vanilla, and hazelnut. At 45%, this is absolutely a dangerous bourbon or whiskey because it goes down so smooth and because it blends so well with so many things. But I can definitely understand what they're saying with the chocolate. I'm starting to understand that profile. If you see it on the shelf, grab one. You won't be disappointed. My most recommended whiskey. And the reason for that is it's so smooth. Get the Dalmore 12 or the Dalmore 15 year. You won't regret it. This is the bottle that opened the door to the seriousness that I have about whiskey and bourbon now. You know, it's not whiskey and Coke or Jack and Coke or whatever. When I had my first taste of Dalmore, I knew there was a whole new world I had to explore. And that world is absolutely stunning and amazing when you start looking into the histories behind bourbons and whiskeys, and you start looking into the processes to develop these incredible spirits. Dalmore, for me, is what started it all. And to this day, is the one I go back to automatically. If I'm gifting a bottle of bourbon or whiskey, it's Dalmore. If I'm picking one bottle or whiskey that I can have on my bar, it's Dalmore. If I'm drinking it straight, it's Dalmore. If I'm mixing it in a drink, probably not Dalmore. But trust me when I tell you, this is an amazing spirit. Dalmore changes in price. It can go anywhere from $60 to $100. It was initially matured in American white oak ex-bourbon cask. When we talk about vanilla and honey, I get both of those in here. And you can smell the vanilla, you can taste the vanilla, and the honey makes it so smooth. It's got just a touch of sweetness. With an ABV of 40, it's a wonderful, wonderful spirit. Rather you want to drink it straight, room temperature, on ice. Yeah, and like I said, if you want to put it in a mixed drink, it goes perfectly there too. Cheers, my friends. So smooth. Vanilla. I taste a little bit of caramel. But for me, it's the smoothness. The honey is definitely coming through, and it's a fabulous drink. I mean, absolutely fabulous. You know what'd be really cool? Tell us in the comments what your top five, if I told you were only going to be able to have 5 whiskeys or bourbons, it could be either, 5 of them for the rest of your life, which 5 are you going to pick? These are my 5, but really it's a preference thing. We all have different palates and we all have different preferences. So I'm just hoping that maybe I've exposed you to something new, something you hadn't heard about before, something you haven't seen before. And, who knows? We'll see. Maybe you'll do the same for me. Leave them down in the comments below. My friends, have a wonderful week. Cheers. I can't wait to see you on the next video.